I'd like to bring Chris Rath and our featured conversationalist this morning, Brenda Palms-Barber, up to the stage. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris as we start off our interview today.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How lucky am I? All I have to do is talk with an amazing woman for the benefit of all of us. I don't have to have any answers up here, do I? I just need to ask a few good questions, have a nice conversation, and open up to the audience. That's pretty straightforward, right? So I thought I'd prepare, and I just wanted to run some things by you. We know your bio, it's in the program, we saw this amazing video. So just so I'm straight, you started Sweet Beginnings with your savings. You just emptied all your savings and you started up because you had an idea, right? Okay. So you returned to your native Chicago to give back to the community where you were raised, right? Okay. But you can hear me just fine, right? So unlike entrepreneurship, where everything works perfectly.
So the answer was no.
Okay. All right. So no. All right. So you, with Sweet Beginnings, you import exotic honeys from Africa, Asia, South America, right?
No.
So Sweet Beginnings is a franchise that you licensed by raising venture capital.
No.
Okay. The people who make all this happen, packaging and that sort of thing, is done in Chicago through honor students at the University of Chicago Northwestern.
No. You guys getting this?
Jeff, I think you gave me the wrong. All right, so none of that is true. If none of those things are true, then you have a particularly compelling model. Why did you do what you did? And why does it not resemble any of the things that I mentioned?
I'll tell you that I honestly didn't think that I had any alternatives other than to launch a business, to hire the people whom I was serving through my nonprofit organization, who had served their time behind the wall, who basically did what society asked them to do, which is to serve time, whether it was a year or 19 or 25 years, right? And they went through our program for 4 weeks, and at the end of the day, there really weren't many jobs available to hire them.
No, listen, I want to ask you about that. Why?
Social stigma, fear, risk, liability, perception of high liability.
So if there's a young woman who's an ex-offender who wants to work with children, why can't she just get a job working with children? That's what she loves, that's what she read about while she's behind the wall. What's the problem?
Chris, you raise a really good point, because not only is there social stigma, but there are actually laws on our books that prohibit men and women who have criminal backgrounds from doing certain types of jobs. In the state of Illinois, originally, there were 60 different types of jobs that they were barred from. What's interesting about that is that barbering happens to be one of them. But while you're incarcerated, guess what? You learn how to barber, and you actually cut folks' hair, administrators and officers. And, but when they come out, they're barred from that, just because there's something to do with scissors, right?
Scissors. Okay, so what you seem to be saying is that in this recession, where African Americans and Latinos in particular already have a difficult time finding jobs, as well as most Americans, frankly, without a record. Those who are coming out have even less chance just out the box. They do everything right. There's that much greater barrier that they face.
That's right.
So, I don't know anything about these. But what I gather is that it looks difficult. It looks, I mean, the complexity of what's required to do it right is significant. And so what's interesting to me is that oftentimes we assume, however you want to define we, that folks coming out of prison can only do certain things or have the capacity, intellectual capacity, professional capacity, and this looks like complex work. So I'm curious about how your mind worked around getting folks to do complex work that I suspect most of them had never done before. How did you connect that? What gave you the sense that you could pull this off in this way?
Wow, that's a great question, and it's a big question, and I'll try to be as succinct as I possibly can. But first of all, working with bees is actually far less complicated than many of us think. But let me just say that most folks who we hire have no real interest in working with bees, to be honest. They will tell you right away, when I heard that I had to work with bees, I was like, oh man. Or is this woman crazy? I mean, we actually have that on record. But it also speaks to the desperate need to work if you are willing, right, to work with bees, and you're so afraid of them, because most of us are. The thing that moved me in the direction of working with bees is that I had had a number of really failed ideas, right? And as I was thinking about developing an earned income strategy to support the nonprofit organization, because the issue of unemployment was so huge, you know, that it's 3 times that of the city of Chicago. This little community on the west side of Chicago, why was the unemployment rate so high? We discovered it was because of the high number of people who were returning to this community that had criminal backgrounds. And so I thought, we've got to do something. So these ideas, like I said, some were really, really bad, but some of them were because they weren't going to be sustainable. They were nice ideas, but they weren't really going to be creating a sustainable long-term business, which is what we needed in our community. So I'm at my wit's end. Okay, let me just tell you one of the bad, do you want to hear one of the bad ideas? One of the bad ideas was a delivery service, okay? And in North Lawndale, there are lots of folks who are older and not able to get out as much. And I thought, well, I have these men and women who with backgrounds, let's get them licenses and let's get them, you know, CDL licenses, and then we can have them go and pick up groceries or prescriptions for Mrs. Jones and deliver them to her home. And you sort of go, really? You got, no, that's probably not going to work. So there were lots of ideas that just didn't make sense, but at the end of the day, I was desperate, and I had a friend who was a member of my board, and she was a hug-a-tree, save-a-dog, save-a-whale type of gal, right? And I'm not. But she was talking about these green kind of ideas back in 2002, and I thought, I'm so desperate. I'm willing to hug a tree and learn about a bee. And what I learned about bees, to answer your question, is that it's a profession, some would say a hobby, that's passed down by word of mouth, through storytelling. And I thought, wow, so no matter what your academic attainment was, that everybody could learn equally through this process of storytelling. And I thought that made sense to me. And so then that led down this path of learning more about beekeeping. And initially that's what the business was about. It really was about beekeeping. But I had so many people question the viability of that idea. I don't know if you really want to go there or not yet, but people said to me, so you think you're going to help ex-offenders by being beekeepers? And they were serious. And I thought, gosh, there's something really wrong, what is wrong with that idea? And eventually, we have water. Thank you. And so eventually, I realized that there were some challenges. So it's important to listen to people, because it was very seasonal, and we also recognized that the honey was not going to be profitable long-term. The profit margins on honey are only 13%. So again, this wasn't going to be a successful business unless I could do something to change those profit margins.
So you knew off the bat that honey in and of itself, the raw honey or refined?
Raw honey. That's the only kind of honey to eat.
Oh.
Raw local honey.